Welcome back to episode 2 of Cash Furnace. My name is Paul Kinzerski, and together with my co-host Eric Downs, we aim to become your go-to source for daily stock and crypto market news. In today's podcast, we cover Zoom offering $1.5 billion in common stock and how it got bought up from a 2% immediate downturn to a 5.5% upside by the end of the day. In Bitcoin news, we talk about Gary Gensler nominated to head Biden's SEC and the massive opportunities that may come for crypto legislation moving forward. We also talk about Bitcoin in a couple of days, which is a new record. And we also take a look at some crypto charts and take some wild predictions of the future. Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you see and you want to keep the news coming, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment and help us run up this YouTube algorithm. Let's make some money. All right, podcast number 2. Let's get it off to a good your article here about Zoom. So why don't you get us started?
Yeah, so as you can see, you see by the title here, Zoom, the very popular video conferencing software that is what powers Cash Furnace, is offering $1.5 billion in common stock today. So I found this interesting. This is just a simple, brief piece, but what I found interesting is that whenever I see common stock offering, especially to the tune of $1.5 billion. The first thing that goes to my mind is dilution. And so I took a look at Zoom's chart, because to be honest, I actually don't track Zoom that much. I'm very aware of it. I know it's massively up right now. It's just, for whatever reason, I'm not into it.
Right.
What I hadn't realized is that it had peaked basically at the end of October, and it was on a pretty heavy downtrend. In fact, extremely heavy. It peaked in October at 588 at the end of October. Just for
Jesus.
reference, in February, it started at 70. So
yeah.
Monstrously up. But since that peak at the end of October, we've just been on a steady downtrend the whole time. We're sitting right at about 350. So anyway, for whatever that's worth, didn't realize. But I also then noticed that, under the ticker it says up 5.6% today. I'm like, dude, really? Wow. Took a look at the intraday chart, and yeah, the whole thing dumped hardcore pre-market right when they announced this, which is what I would expect. For anyone who's not familiar with the concept of dilution, basically when you add, it's a simple supply and demand issue, and when you add more shares, you add more supply. When supply grows and demand stays the same, or when supply is greater than demand, prices go down. So it's like if you had nine different banana companies selling bananas at the grocery store, it's like they all have to compete. Well, actually, God, you know what?
Right.
That's just market dynamics. That's not necessarily supply and demand. But basically, when there's a shortage of something, people are willing to pay more for it. When there's tons of something, people are not as willing to pay as much for it. So a stock drop is to be expected. But man, as soon as the market opened, blam! You just look at this intraday chart, and from the moment we opened, it immediately corrected like right back up, and then more than doubled.
Now, today. That means what's the current price for one share?
Closed at 350. Well, you know what? Yeah, it's 356 a share.
What was it before the offering?
It bottomed.
Like
you mean
just yesterday
when it dropped? Oh, well, just yesterday. Yesterday's close was about 338, and
338.
And then pre-market, when it tanked, it bottomed at 318.
Let me make sure I get enough zeros in here.
I hear
my calculator won't even It won't even do the fucking math because
Not
it's
enough
such a big
zeros?
number. I was trying to see, how many shares essentially
Wait,
got snapped up immediately.
you want to learn a quick pro tip for you and all of our users? Are you
Sure.
using an iPhone?
I was, yes.
Turn turn it
Turn it
uh
sideways.
turn it sideways to go to scientific mode and get more digits.
I always have it locked on vertical. Okay.
Well,
500,000,000,000 divided by what did we say it was yesterday? 330.
like it looks like it was 3 here. I'll get you the exact number. It closed yesterday at 337.71.
Let's say with 338.
Sure.
So that's 4,437,869 shares
Hmm.
that were offered to the public that got snapped up within the first hour.
Yeah.
Just to put that into perspective, right?
But yeah.
So obviously, despite the fact that it's kind of been on a bit of a decline since, would you say, October?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Obviously, there's still a lot of appetite to buy Zoom.
Yeah. Well, and you know what's interesting?
Which makes us yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Which makes you go ahead.
Well,
Makes you wonder.
it makes me wonder, are people still thinking that this pandemic is, these vaccines are not going to have quite the hit rate that everybody was expecting initially? Like, what is the upside people are still seeing to Zoom that they think they need to buy so heavy in right now, right? And maybe that's the fact that so many businesses canceled all their leases. And I mean, there's a million different aspects. I wonder what you think is the catalyst to get people to buy so heavy today when so many shares are offered enough to make the price bump and not, keep that 2% drop.
Well, you know what, man? If I'm totally honest, I was trying to bring up a two. I wonder if I can see a 200-day moving average here, because I don't know. I don't have it on hand in front of me right now. But basically, what I noticed is that if you take a look at the daily chart over the last year,
right,
as soon as September hits, it explodes upwards, off trajectory, right? It was growing really heavy, right?
Yep.
But as soon as September hits, it goes almost full rocket ship formation.
Well, September is when we got the news that let us know that there wasn't going to be a vaccine probably until January.
Right. So everyone's saying, cool, Zoom forever.
So that
right?
makes sense to me. Right.
Right. So what I'm thinking here is, after off of its peak, again, if you take a look at sort of the average movement of the chart, off its peak, it seems to actually be down, basically meeting its sort of average trajectory, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
Right.
And so I would be willing to bet that they took today as some. I mean, look, I don't know if they do this at these companies, but I can't help but wonder if they're thinking like, okay, cool. So we know what people's conception of Zoom is. We know Kathy Wood loves Zoom.
I was just about to mention her.
Yep, and we know she bought a ton of it. We know that she's banking on basically work from home being a thing for a long time, but also Zoom being the leading innovator in remote work. So my guess is that what happened here is essentially after September, we just went borderline parabolic. We went way too far, way too fast. We're about now parachuting down, falling back to basically what our original growth trajectory was that is reasonable, sustainable for this company. And all people needed was an excuse to get in, and this little stab downward that they knew would be created by a dilution was the catalyst. And everyone was like, cool, and this is as cheap. Yeah. This is the moment. This is the signal. This is as cheap as it's going to get. Let's ape in. And I think that's what happened.
I would say you probably hit the nail on the head there. Just listening, reading forums, Wall Street Bets, people will follow Kathy right now to the grave, right?
I know I
They'll
will.
jump off a fucking bridge if they say jump, if she
Yep.
says jump, right? And I think this kind of just shows people's, and I think there will be a time to capitalize on people's blind faith in Kathy, because no one's perfect. You can't
Right.
be perfect,
Sure.
right? And I think there's going to be a time where people just go a bit too far following her that we're going to be able to capitalize on in the future. But I think you hit the nail on the head. This was just an excuse for people. Oh, it's a 2% drop. That's a bargain or
Right.
whatever, right? It's on sale today. So
Yep.
let's throw everything I've been saving to put into Zoom. So I would definitely agree with you there. But it's interesting to think about the relationship with Kathy, and I'm definitely going to start looking at stocks that I believe are overvalued simply because she said, "Hey, we're buying this," and people just blindly buying into it and following
Woof.
her to the bridge,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I'd be lying if I said that I'm not one of those people. I mean, I'm
Oh,
not
absolutely.
I'm not a, don't get me wrong. I'm not just like whatever she buys is gold. Like
Right.
well, not that it's literal gold, but I do own several of her funds.
Yep.
I do subscribe to all of her. She's very heavy on social media. She does a lot of crowdsourced research, and that's what's really cool, very forward and innovative, and with forward thinking about who she is and
Right.
what she does, which is why she resonates, I think, with so many, especially young investors, because she's creating the funds and the vision that encapsulate what all young investors understand. That is
Absolutely.
disruptive technology. Um,
Right.
and that's the reason I love her. That's why I think that's
Hmm.
the reason I think what she's doing is amazing. But yeah, I wonder. I was just listening to a podcast the other day, uh, comparing comparing Kathy to the hedge manager for the Janus. Was it Janus 20 or something from? I don't know if it was 20. I think it was might have been 20. I don't know, from the .com days. They had this. The hottest hedge fund, or the hottest fund manager from the .com days on this podcast to talk about Kathy Wood and what his take was on her. And he was glowing. He had nothing but great things to say. He fascinatingly ended up shutting down the fund, basically before everything imploded, because he was like, "This
Right.
is it. The froth is too much. Time to
Right.
cut it. Time to call it quits." Um, I'm wondering, like, there's more of a reason for froth to generate around Kathy than not. And I think
Absolutely.
that's probably
100%.
that's probably one of the most fascinating challenges that she has to deal with and her fund has to deal with, is somehow trying to
Hmm.
manage all that, is trying to manage the froth, you know?
Right.
But the
And
fact
also
that
managing people's outrageous expectations of her now, right? If
exactly,
she doesn't
exactly.
deliver an absolutely stellar 30+% year this year, people are going to
Hmm.
be pissed, which
Yeah,
is outrageous to even think about, but it's simply the truth. People expect her to take them to the moon. And I mean, the jury's still out, right? Like nobody actually knows how she's going to perform. And
right.
people are going to be really pissed off if she doesn't.
Yeah.
But
But
that's just how it goes. That's the name of the game.
what's wild though is when you think about this and all the attention she's getting, you know, this is
Hmm.
different from our previous eras of hot fund managers, because, again, let's
Hmm.
take it back to 2001, for instance. Like, back in 2001, you didn't have your fund managers on you making YouTube videos and being active on social media. You know, the fact
Absolutely. Right.
the fact that she's so accessible is such a
Hmm.
two-sided coin, because it makes
Right.
her so relatable. It makes all of her information, it makes her trustworthy, it makes all of her information super accessible.
Hmm.
But we all know, you know, hashtag Kathy Wood, hashtag ARK Invest, I'm talking, like, there
Right.
is plenty, it's ripe for a froth opportunity. And boy, if she becomes the first social media hedge or fund manager, what a time to be alive. Tell you what.
Right. Right. Hey, somebody's got to be the first. But
I
it also just just to reiterate on that point, I don't want to stay on Kathy the whole time for this, but this might totally work in her favor, right? Her fund buys something, it's shown the next day what they bought, and all of a sudden people are like, well, I got to get in too, and they've instantly made money.
I know.
Instantly, because all the shares go up. So maybe she just winds up outperforming the market simply because of her outreach.
Yeah.
It's just a cool thought to think about.
Well, look, on that note, and not to take too much time on this, but I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So we know, okay, 1.5 billion shares. Now you know that she got in at a better price than everyone else, of course.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
We all know that. That's fine. Good for her. That's why she's great.
Yep.
But based off of the chart's trajectory, the condition of the chart, and now Kathy's endorsement, or I should say, increased endorsement, would you buy Zoom right now?
No, I think it's overpriced. But
Why
that's
is
just
that?
me. I don't see them offering much more. If they came out with new products to offer to their user base, if there was something new that kind of justified such a gigantic increase, other than people constantly needing Zoom now in order to communicate, I would be more invested, kind of like I am with Dropbox, right?
Yeah.
With just so the users know, I'm very heavy on Dropbox right now, just because they've added a whole list of new ideas and basically new areas where they can make money off of everybody that's utilizing their platform. Not to mention, everybody would be drawn to the platform to use all the tools that they're adding in, such as document signing and kind of like a built-in Slack where everybody could IM each other and share files and et cetera, instantly. That I believe brings a lot of use case and a lot of good hard reasoning behind a share rising, other than pure hype. And I think Zoom is hype right now.
I was going to say, I don't really, I mean, this might be my own ignorance, but to be honest, I don't actually understand what Zoom's moat is against everyone.
Right.
Against Google, against Skype, against Microsoft.
That's exactly my point.
I don't get what their moat is.
What is their unique ability other than the fact that people already use them? Because people are not loyal to something they have to pay money to.
No, no, not at all.
So that's why I personally wouldn't buy in at this point.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to crypto, I have two pieces of news I wanted to cover today. The first smaller one being the total real daily trading volume, as BTC kind of comes from this drop down from 40 to 30K that we saw on Sunday and Monday, right? So we're showing the trading volume right now is right about $22 billion, which is a absolutely massive spike coming from where we were at kind of last week, the end of last week. I mean, obviously a lot of people sold, a lot of retail sold, and a lot of big dogs bought at that 30K mark on Monday. But even with this kind of correction from the 31 range to the 35 range, we're still seeing a lot of activity here. The previous all-time high was around 60 billion, and in only one day, that was in a 7-day trading volume. In only one day, the exchanges have processed a third of that weekly high. So
my God,
with this, at least this article is likely pointing to a new all-time high by the end of the week if this current momentum continues, right?
By the end of the week?
Yeah. And this is kind of going off of our analysis yesterday on the coin, and how basically everybody freaked out and sold to the big hands, the big firms, And now I think it's going to be just a FOMO backup, right? And I think this is going to continue to climb to a new all-time high price-wise and a new all-time high with trading volume as well throughout this entire week.
Wow.
In other news, which I believe is even bigger, Gary Gensler, who has been teaching at MIT on blockchain, has been nominated by Biden to head the SEC. This guy has been pro blockchain for years now and is probably the most informed. If he is nominated, he will be the most informed blockchain SEC chair ever in history. And this is very obviously very, very good for crypto, because typically what we see, right, is we see people that don't understand Bitcoin and its use case and all of its benefits. They're the ones that are like, oh, this is a scam. We need to legislate this. Look how much people's money are going into this. This has 30% corrections. It's obviously not a safe bet. And, you know, we need to regulate this more. Whereas with Gary, he understands the technology. He knows where it's going. Not to mention, just to inform the listeners of the podcast, I truly believe that this year we are going to get a U.S. Fed-backed coin. And I think Gary's going to be the one to lead the charge, kind of, right? All this stimulus money that's coming into people's pocket, how convenient would it be if there were no delays, if you could spend it immediately, and if the government could tell you exactly how to spend it, so all that money that they're printing can be insured to go into the economy rather than paying down debts or going into other assets or something like that, right? Because right now what we're seeing is the velocity of this money that they're printing isn't as high as what they want. People aren't going to local businesses and spending it, where traditionally, if this was 10 years ago, people would have went out and spent it in their local community, which has a velocity of I believe, right around 5. So for every dollar they print, 5 comes out of it, right? Where you go, you give your local, I don't know, small business $20. Then they take that $20 and they pay their landlord. Then that landlord takes that $20 and he buys a meal at a restaurant, and so on and so forth, right? That money continually flows. Now what they're seeing is people are taking this money and they're throwing it into assets such as Bitcoin, such as the stock market, and or they're paying off debt where it just kind of dies really fast.
Sure.
And the rich are simply getting richer when you take your money and you throw it into the stock market that for stocks that they already own. Right. So I think this is a huge deal for crypto. We have someone now that, well, he hasn't been nominated yet, but if it goes through, we'll have somebody that understands the technology and is willing to take the U.S. kind of into the future of monetary crypto.
Man, that's huge.
Right.
That's huge.
I truly think this is going to be a massive, massive change in regulation and just cryptocurrency in general, because we are still, though people say, you know, China's going to take us over, we are still the number one economy in the world, right? And people are going to follow if we create good legislation around cryptocurrencies, if we create our own federal coin, other nations are to follow. That's just how it's going to be.
Right. Dude, I'm excited. I'm on board. You know, I'm in. Let's do it.
Hell yeah. So briefly before we go, I wanted to cover the charts, right? We talked yesterday when we were starting to get this nice little rally, and this rally has gone up. I am slightly worried about this right here, which is a potential head and shoulders, right? If we break down below this line, there's a very high likelihood that we continue downwards to the next kind of supported level right about 26.4. However, with that being said, I still don't think that we're going to get there. I think we're going to, within the next couple of weeks, reach an all-time high and continue moving onwards and upwards. I also go ahead.
Polly, what's your price target?
Price target for if we rally upwards? Because I have multiple, right? You got to have your bear case and your bull case. You can't be a perma bull all the time.
Give us both.
Bear case 26 doesn't have a ton of support there, but that is where the major institutions bought in last very heavily, right? That 24 to 26 range. And again, as we talked about yesterday, they're not weak hands. So we could see some selling off to those levels, but I don't know if it would go much further below that. That being said, the next high support level where we trended within the range for a long time is right around the 18.8 to 19,000 mark, right? 18.8 to like 19.6 range. And that absolute worst case scenario, we hit there, we're not going lower. There's no way. Now you could say, oh, don't say that because crypto always goes lower than you first expect. However, what we've shown is we just broke out of all-time highs, right? In every single run. Granted, we've only had 3, so we're working with an N of 3 here. Can't guarantee it. But every single run, once we've broken all-time high and gone on a rally, we've never gone below that all-time high ever again. So I really don't think we could wick down maybe to like 19.6 worst case scenario. Excuse me. But I don't think that I don't think we're going to stay there much longer than an hour at most.
Wow. Okay.
And then we'll be popped right back up over the 20. So, and that's just based off past history. Again, crypto always goes farther in both directions than you ever think is possible. And I could be eating my words tomorrow. Who knows, right? But I really don't see that case kind of bearing out, especially with the big institutions buying in around that 24 to 26 level.
So what's your bull case?
My bull case is we see 55. We kind of talked about that yesterday, right? With that last run up, we see right around 52 to 55 and that's, I'd say 65%. I'm trending that direction right now. We have to see where this little guy's heading right now because it looks scary, right? We're close to closing a head and shoulders here. But I really think that we're going to see a rally upwards. Now, what makes me even more excited, to fill in, again, the listeners, I have been in our group chat screaming, buy Ethereum since, the 480 mark a couple of months ago?
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
Yeah. And here's what I'm noticing that's building on the Ethereum chart, which is absolutely huge. And this right here looks like an absolutely massive cup and handle forming, right? We trend in this direction. We stay within this range for a week or two.
Yep.
I see this thing absolutely exploding upwards. We're talking 2,700, 2,800 range. Because what you do when you have patterns like this, right, is you take where the pattern starts the drop or the rise, whatever direction. We take this drop, and that brings us, hold on, let's measure here. Take this drop where it started of about 77%, and we apply it, we'll say the handle starts right here. We're talking minimum 1908. And I think once we're in this range, people are going to just be FOMOing in. It is the season, baby.
So Paulie, I have a question. So this time frame that you're looking at right now,
Yep.
if you're right, as we know, a lot of crypto, particularly the big three, typically move together, very similarly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're seeing what could potentially be a very mixed signals on Bitcoin, but what a potentially bullish signal, very big bullish signal on Ethereum, what is Ethereum's ability to break out of this cup and handle if Bitcoin decides to tank?
Okay. Now,
Does that make sense?
yes. If we look, and this is why I want to show you the chart here. This is the ETH BTC comparison chart, right? Now, this is ETH is Ethereum's peak price outperforming Bitcoin, right? And we've been slowly trending up very recently, except for the last few days when Bitcoin took a dive, right? And made that massive run. That's this whole range here. But we've been slowly trending up very recently where Ethereum was actually starting to outperform Bitcoin, right? Mm-hmm. Your money would actually be better, not in Tether, but in Ethereum to protect it and to gain in value, right? So what I see here is that cup and handle starts to go, right? And we hit that 0.03375 range. If we blow past this, we're blowing past all-time high. And I think actually Ethereum will start outperforming Bitcoin as far as where your money is best gaining its value.
Okay.
Right. But I mean, that's all speculation right now.
You heard it here first, folks.
But also, I doubt you've heard it here first.
Okay.
If you're listening to our podcast for crypto, you're probably pretty well informed and only growing. Not to mention the fact that you have the psychology where people say, "Oh my God, one Bitcoin costs me right now $35,000."
Yeah.
Ethereum, oh, it's only 1,100. That's cheap, man. That's
know,
so cheap.
God,
I'm gonna buy 3 of them.
Oh God,
which is dumb, but it's just how it goes.
I know.
So
brilliant.
That's the news for the day.